Great, okay, thank you. Well, just a reminder to everyone, the commission members, to turn on your microphones prior to speaking, so people in the audience and people on the local television can hear you. So this is the Historic Preservation Commission meeting for Wednesday, June 7th, 2023. This time is 7 o'clock, starting right on time. And Marcus, could you do a roll call?
David Hayes,
Present.
Alice Novak, Laura O'Donnell,
Present.
Dennis Roberts,
Present.
Trent Shepard, Angela Urban,
Present.
and Andrew Weiss.
Present.
Great, so we have a quorum, so we can proceed. And Marcus, were there any changes to the agenda?
There were no changes to the agenda.
Okay, so we have the minutes from the most recent meeting, March 1st, 2023. And so the procedure here is that we move to approve the minutes, and then if there are any amendments or corrections, we do that after we have a first and a second. So does anyone want to move to approve the minutes?
I'll move to approve the minutes.
Thank you. A second?
I'll second.
Thank you very much. Do any members of the commission have corrections or amendments to the minutes?
I just have one item. We did get an email letter from Brian Adams concerning one of the comments that was made during the discussion at the meeting of November 2nd. And he pointed out that although the text of the minutes quoted that there was not any development for the Boneyard Creek that had been done recently or at all in recent memory, he corrected us to mention the beautification project of the Boneyard Creek that happened between 2006 and 2014, which resulted in 5 sections of the creek being designed by an outside design commission and approved by the city, and one part of it, the Central Park, Part 3, actually was constructed, and it turned out to be a very beautiful park that straddles Broadway Avenue between Race and, and it initiates a beautiful circular drive on both sides of Race Street. So I think I was the person who made the comment that was so flagrant, I guess. My intention was to point out that I acknowledged that there was some beautification done, but that an overall conceptual connection of the Boneyard Creek from the downtown Urbana to the University of Illinois campus, and thus into Campustown and the Champaign area, although it's been completed and built by all other entities, Urbana remains the only city that hasn't had a formal plan of study, or certainly not one that was adopted, but actually a formal, complete study of the Boneyard Creek that I could find on record since 1978. And therefore, my comment was that we're a little bit sleepy, and I would really encourage the city to consider adopting a plan that connects the downtown to the campus of the U of I through a shared use parkway and bicycle path. So I appreciate Brian Adams' thoughtful recollection to us that, yes, we've done some important work, but my point was that there was more work to be done.
Thank you very much. And that is that email message, which was sent on February 27th, 2023, was attached to the minutes that we just received. So the body is there, and it's full of information, as you're noting. Yeah. Thank you very much. Any other comments, amendments to the minutes? I had one, very simple. My name is misspelled in the body of the minutes. Hays, no E. That's it for posterity. So I think we're ready to approve the minutes. All members in favor, please say yes.
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 All members opposed, please say no. Okay, the minutes are approved as corrected. Thank you very much. So this is now the public input section of the meeting. And so we invite members of the public to address the Historic Preservation Commission on any topic that's not related to the landmark nomination. So that's the public hearing part. So does any member of the public wish to address the commission on any topic other than the hearing? Doesn't look like it? Okay, thank you. We can move on to, there's no continued public hearings, and we have no unfinished business. So we can move to the next item on the agenda, which is the new public hearing. So this is case number HP 2023L01, a request by Reverend B.J. Tatum on behalf of the Canaan Baptist Church to designate the Canaan Baptist Church at 402 West Main Street as a local historic landmark. And so we'll ask Marcus Ricci to present the staff report for this case.
Good evening. I do want to point out that we are moving to new software to handle our boards and commission meetings, and we're still working out the bugs. The agenda does have some mislettering. Once we got to new public hearings, all of a sudden it didn't have a letter. So new public hearings should be item G, and then just shift all of those letters, and hopefully we'll figure that out as things come up. As Mr. Hayes stated, Reverend Tatum has submitted an application on behalf of Canaan Baptist Church. To designate the church as Canaan Missionary Baptist Church as a local historic landmark. Dennis Roberts helped prepare the application and supplementary materials and may be presenting for the applicant. If he does, he will recuse himself from the commission's discussion and vote. We do appreciate commission members helping residents and institutions submitting applications or providing additional information. That expert subject matter expertise is very helpful to everybody. Since the property owner has consented to the nomination, the HPC may designate the property as a historic landmark if it finds that the property meets one or more of the criteria set forth in Section 12.5C1 of the zoning ordinance. Staff did find that the nomination meets criteria A, C, D, and E, and recommends that the commission designate the church as a historic landmark. The applicant is nominating the church for designation as a historic landmark under several landmark criteria: its architectural significance, its prominent placement on historic West Main Street, its noted architect, and the significant position it has played in the civic, cultural, ethnic, and social heritage of the African American community of Urbana, as well as the city of Urbana as a whole. The church is located on the north side of Main Street between Central Avenue and West Avenue, which is now North McCullough Street. It was built, showing the original plat here, in 1872. It was then West Avenue, now North McCullough. The church itself was built in 1909 for the congregation of the First Christian Church. And the cornerstone was laid on November 13th of 1909, and the finished church was dedicated on June 5th of 1910. There are some great photographs in the supplemental exhibits showing the original building, some events happening there like the dedication. It was really quite impressive. Moving into the discussion, the zoning ordinance requires that the proposed landmark meet one or more of the criteria. The application states that it meets criteria A, C, D, and E. The application goes through those in great detail. The church contributes significantly to the architectural heritage of the city because of its style. It is an early example of Royer's foray into more contemporary styles, going beyond the Victorian era and revivalist styles he had used to date, dipping into Frank Lloyd Wright's Prairie and also the Art Deco styles, which differed from all of the other churches in the community and differed from all of Royer's earlier work. The church has also contributed significantly to the ethnic, cultural, and social heritages of the local community through its extensive religious and social activity and programming. The First Christian Church, first established in 1883, joined with the Congregational Church of Champaign in 1932 to become the first Congregational Church of Urbana. This property has been, used as an institutional church from the very beginning. It eventually came into Canaan Baptist Church's hands in 1977. They've been there since then. They've expanded the work on the property, acquiring more properties, building a school, adding an administrative building that's not included in the landmarking application. And the church itself has grown significantly. By 1979, their congregation had grown to around 300. Then began a long history of community outreach and ministry, including a street evangelistic outreach ministry. Later, programming included ministry at Champaign County Children's Home, a media ministry to serve the sick and shut-ins, a PACE program, and the SAFE program, the latter of which provided post-addiction housing and other services. The application and the staff report go into great detail on all of their programming. Therefore, staff recommends a finding that the church qualifies under criterion A. Moving into the second criterion, C, being representative of the distinguishing characteristics of an inherently valuable architectural type, in this case, the Prairie style and Art Deco style here in the city of Urbana. This is a two-part test. It must represent first the distinguishing characteristics of an architectural type, and second, retain a high degree of integrity. The first test, architectural representation, the church is an example, as I mentioned, of Royer's use of Frank Lloyd Wright's Prairie style, which itself was influenced by Europe's Art Deco movement, with added elements of America's arts and crafts and mission style movements. This is all according to the application and subject to discussion. The applicant also explains the similarities between Royer's design for the First Christian Church project back in 1900s and also Wright's Unity Church Temple in Oak Park, Illinois, and describes the church in great detail. You can also see a visual comparison in the application between the two buildings. That's figures 15 through 18 and figures 19 through 26 in the application, and I'd be glad to bring those up if you'd like. Okay. Let's see.
Yeah, they're great images, so it'd be nice to share that, yeah.
Okay. So these are the original designs and dedication in 1910, a current picture in 2023. This is a picture of the original church south of the street, and then a dedication photograph. This is the sanctuary dedication in 1910. And then a later 1978 photograph, an assessor's photograph, and then another 2023 photograph, more contemporary photographs, as well as a picture of Mr. Royer. The top picture is of Unity Temple in Oak Park. You see the sanctuary columns there, as well as I don't get all of the architectural lexicon correct, but with the the eaves, the horizontal eaves that are coming out over the windows. That's mirrored in the, this is also a second picture of Unity Temple on the bottom. More Unity Temple pictures. And then moving into the pictures of the sanctuary at Canaan Baptist Church. A little less grandiose, but still that same feel for the columns and the inset stained glass windows. The overhanging eave over the windows at the bell tower. And then photographs of the stained glass windows there. Okay, moving back into the presentation. In addition to the architectural style, the Prairie and Art Deco, Royer also specified the use of some innovative construction materials at the time, cast cement blocks. This was an era where wooden buildings were still a lot of the norm. There had been a fairly extensive fire in Urbana. A lot of buildings were lost, so people were very concerned about safety and trying to build more fire-resistant buildings. The blocks for the church were fabricated by a local company, the Granitoid Stone Company. There was a new machine called the Summers Pressure Block Machine that was operated by a single person. Took marble dust and compressed it into white Portland cement under high pressure, producing the stone coat blocks for the church. These had a marble-esque veneer to them. One comment in the Courier-Herald quoted this as the exteriors of marble-faced concrete blocks giving the building the appearance of being constructed of genuine marble. Certainly a lot less expensive version than actually building it of marble. And so then the second test, which is the retention of integrity, the applicant states in the application that the church retains an extremely high degree of integrity in architectural style and material construction. The exterior and interior architectural features remain as originally constructed. The only reconfiguration structurally is at the entrance under the western tower facing Main Street, where the 3 steps leading up to the tower entrance have been turned to the side, leading to a small landing in front of the door. And I will. So figure 22 is showing that entrance. I believe this is the correct one, showing that entrance with the landing turned to the side rather than coming straight out toward the street. The sole exterior decorative change is that the original surface treatment of the pressed concrete blocks, which originally simulated a marble finish, has been painted decades ago. So that, that would come in as the landmarking of today. And any changes to that would, require a certificate of appropriateness if it was something other than just repainting them. If something more extensive wanted to be done, perhaps removing the painting, that would likely have to come back to the Historic Preservation Commission to get reviewed and approved. Amazingly, the building also retains its original stained glass windows. I took my own photos, and only seeing them from the outside, they look in good condition, especially for that age. Therefore, again, staff recommends a finding that the church qualifies under criterion C. Moving into the third criterion, that the building is a notable work of a master builder, designer, or architect or artist whose individual genius has influenced an area. The architect of the church was Joseph William Royer. Royer was born in Urbana in 1873. A little bit of his background: he studied engineering and architecture at the University of Illinois' College of Engineering under architect Nathan C. Ricker, Dean of the College of Engineering. He was also the city engineer of the city of Urbana for 8 years, and then established his own firm in the Stevens Building on West Main Street in Urbana, and later opened an office in the Flatiron Building at West Main Street and Springfield Avenue. He was the designer and architect of many significant buildings in the city of Urbana, also facade renovations. Some of his most notable works were the Champaign County Courthouse, the 1901 version, the Urbana First Presbyterian Church in 1902, the Stevens Building in 1902. Other noteworthy achievements are the Urbana High School in 1914, the Urbana Free Library in 1917, and the Urbana Lincoln Hotel in 1922. Therefore, staff recommends a finding that the church qualifies under Criterion D as a notable work of master designer Joseph Royer. Finally, Criterion E refers to being identifiable as an established and familiar visual feature in the community owing to its unique location or physical characteristics. The application in the staff report goes into a little bit more detail, but in summation, West Main Street was one of the most exclusive residential streets in the city of Urbana in the late 1800s, 1900s, and was the site of homes of several of Urbana's most influential citizens, including Samuel Busey, co-founder of Busey Bank, Matthew Busey, state legislator, influential for ensuring that railroad routes passed into Urbana, and Clark Robinson Griggs, also another state legislator who influenced the siting of today's University of Illinois in the city. The church's retention of its hexagonal floor plan, its square bell tower, and original exterior deck ornamentation, including the pillars and the original stained glass window, give it a distinctive, easily distinguishable appearance and a place where it's been sitting for the last 110 years. Therefore, staff recommends a finding that the church qualifies under Criterion E as identifiable, as an established and familiar visual feature in the community. As far as public input goes, staff published a legal aid in the News Gazette. We sent letters to neighboring property owners and posted a public hearing sign on the property. We received one comment of support for the requested landmark, which was included in the staff report exhibits. The findings themselves are summarized in the staff report. And moving back into PowerPoint. Some select photos. These are the photographs at the time of building. The options in case 2023-L01, the commission may find that the nomination meets one or more of the criteria and approve the application to designate the property as a local landmark, or find that the nomination does not meet any of the criteria for designation and deny the application. In either case, the commission should include findings of fact in their motion. The findings of fact should summarize the commission's justification, and the vote required is a majority of those present and voting, but with no less than 3 affirmative votes. Staff recommends that based on the application and our analysis, we find that the landmark application for 402 West Main Street conforms with all 4 criteria and recommends that the commission approve the application with those findings as stated in the staff report. I'm happy to answer questions. Dean Carlton and Assistant Sheena are here from the church. Reverend Tatum was not able to come. They're here to answer questions as well.
Okay, well, we'll begin with if there are any questions from the commissioners for Marcus, or any comments on, questions or comments.
Just a comment on item A,
Yes.
because I noticed certain words were highlighted: architectural, cultural, ethnic, and social heritage. I don't know if it can be amended, but I just want to highlight that economic and educational could perhaps be underlined as well, and noting Reverend Tatum's vision to open that elementary school that's located in the same area. ranking 97th percentile nationwide, I think is significant. And then also more recently, opening the credit union for low-interest loans, I think is also very significant.
I completely agree. As I was writing the report, I was picking out the things, and then I realized, oh, hey, those four sub ones were selected, but I'm sure the applicants would be happy to have it, additional sub-criteria added on.
Other questions or comments from commissioners? Dennis?
It's kind of maybe interesting. I'm the person who assisted Reverend Tatum to prepare the document, and I recognize a couple of errors that I made in the document, a couple typos and things. Maybe it's not important to nitpick it, but one I feel very bad about, and I want to correct that a couple of instances when I did references to articles that appeared in the PACA magazine written by Brian Adams, who's been a person who's made many different recommendations for nomination in the past. I'm not sure what brain lapse I had, but in 3 instances on page 24, in the second bullet point, the first paragraph, and on page 29, the first paragraph, and on page 33 in the addendum of books and articles reflected in my research, Brian's name is spelled B-R-Y-A-N, and it should be B-R-I-A-N. I'm not sure where I got that or why I repeated it. I guess I was cutting and pasting, but I would certainly regret it, and I wish that to be reflected, the correction.
We can correct that.
I have something along that line too. On page 9, when it says, it lists the property as being 710 West Oregon, and shouldn't that be 402 West Main?
That was mine, and I
Okay.
just saw that as I was reading
Sorry.
from my script. No, and that is a cut and paste error and very sloppy, and I apologize.
Computers don't change addresses like that, but they do change spelling. So if I type my own name into my computer, it will change it to DABIDHAYES. I don't know, but thank you for calling that out.
And sometimes you have to fight the computer
Yes,
because
right,
it wants
right,
to be
yeah.
smart, but it's not.
Any other questions or comments? From the commissioners. Dennis, did you have another one?
No.
I did have one, which is, having read through the whole document, I was really interested in the Art Deco dimension of this. And so I note that in the staff report, you've just said that the Prairie style was influenced by Art Deco, but it would be the opposite. Because Prairie style really begins circa 1900, and what we have come to call Art Deco begins a couple decades later. But also on that front, I think this building is really fascinating because it does look like an Art Deco building. When I saw it the first time, I thought, well, there are really interesting notes there, but it's earlier than what historians would say is Art Deco. So it's really, this is a really advanced building at its time, and its proximity to Unity Temple is pretty stunning because this is beginning while the other is still in construction. So I think it's worth calling out, not that it's influenced, that Royer is in a sense copying Wright or copying Art Deco, which is impossible at that point, but that he's really doing something very synthetic and new. And for this to be a style of a church in a community like this says a lot. It didn't look like any other building, let alone any other church. So there's something extremely progressive in its genesis. So
Does the assertion, because I am not an architect by any means, do you see Art Deco elements in it, or like proto-Art Deco?
Well, it's a funny, Bob Brugman, for example, is an architectural historian who was at the University of Illinois of Chicago, and he gives a great talk about Art Deco, because it meant many things.
Mm-hmm.
And the term doesn't get coined until 1968, although there was an exposition in 1925 in Paris called the Exposition des Arts Décoratifs, and so that's being referenced. So there was a style that people were calling moderne, like le style moderne. In the United States, they use that title. They would call it jazzy, actually. Lots of words were used for it, but in any case, it certainly anticipates some dimensions of what we would come to call Art Deco.
Okay.
I mean, but prairie style. I mean,
Right.
it's really it's an interesting building in and of itself, and it's such a break from what Royer was doing that I think it's a real standout.
Yeah, I was surprised that it was a Royer building.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, because we're used to thinking of him as being great with what, you might call an intelligent pastiche. But this is, it's in a different territory. So,
No, I agree. As one of the 3 churches he designed in Urbana, they're all within like 6 blocks of each other. One of them doesn't exist anymore. The Presbyterian Church was demolished. But the Presbyterian Church and the Universalist Unity Church or whatever is, they're very kind of English Kirk country traditional designs, which of course obviously the congregations wanted.
Yeah.
But yeah, the First Christian Church, or now the Canaan Baptist, was such a tremendous mind break for Royer. I find it incredible, and the fact that the Unity Church in Chicago is being built by Frank Lloyd Wright just at the same time, practically.
Yeah.
I mean, perhaps they conversed. I have no idea. They might have been,
They might have both been looking at Ulbrecht in Vienna.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Mhm.
And of course, I totally agree with you that I didn't realize that Art Deco was a newer version of a way of styling it. This architectural style, that was not something I was aware of, but it was interesting to hear about. Thank you.
It was coined by a guy named Beavis Hillier in a book from 1968 that was published in England. And he associates it specifically with the 1920s and 30s. That's the decades there. And I want to add one other remark that, I mean, I appreciate the document's terrific. And even though, as noted in the document, that it's beyond our scope, those elements of the interior with the sliding walls and then also the way that you can open up the floor.
The
and expose-
baptismal
yeah,
font, I
It's-
would love to see that
it's
with the River
phenomenal.
Jordan.
It's really phenomenal, so, yeah. Any other questions, or comments? We're really addressing Marcus here. Okay, so then, if not, then we can open the floor to public input. So this is where audience members are invited to speak about this nomination. And first, we ask people who would like to speak in favor of the nomination. So would any member of the public, of the audience, like to speak in favor of the nomination? Please, and so, in coming up to the microphone, which I don't know if it's on or not. Green light, great. So simply state your name for the record.
My name is Carlton Brewitt. I'm a member of Canaan Baptist Church.
And can you sign in on that sheet right there? Thanks.
First of all, I'd like to thank Mr. Roberts and Mr. Ricci for all the work they've done. It's amazing. It was a great lesson in our history. But even before that, I'd like to apologize for Reverend Tatum. He really wanted to be here. His passion for the building and all we've tried to do is second to none, so I'm kind of a poor second, but I'll do my best. Again, the congregation realizes the historical and architectural significance of the building. We've never tried to change it in any way. We've recognized it as a landmark, and we're just very grateful that you all have taken the opportunity to take a look at it and consider us for this nomination.
Any, we are in this, it's, if you'd like to respond, or, I mean, for the portion of a public hearing, it is okay for commissioners to ask a question or make a comment. Dennis?
I was wondering if Marcus might do a favor. There was other parts to the application that showed not only the construction and the machinery that compressed the blocks, which I thought was uniquely done, the fact that they were purchased in Urbana themselves. And I'd like you to also briefly go through the other images, if you have them, of Reverend Tatum and the buildings and the programs that are conducted by Canaan Baptist Church, because for the educational and community outreach, I think they're very significant for the African-American community.
So here is the local Granitoid Stone Company and the pressure block machine.
And you'll notice in that slide, Marcus, that you can actually see the original stone coat surface and certain parts of the church in the back of the building, mostly, where it's peeled away. And I don't know if it's, that coating is like over 120 years old probably now, but it's interesting. It is kind of like an opalescent marbleized sort of appearance. And where the paint removed, it's hard to know whether it would be happy or sad, but it was a unique technique at the time. Oh, this is important, I think, for the community to know about, that this building is already mentioned in several different documents of historic importance. One is the podcast of Lincoln. It's one of the things mentioned in the Shadow of Lincoln location. And then it's in the Joseph W. Royer Arts and Architectural District pamphlet that was published back in, I think it was 2006 or something like that. It's the second entry. And you'll notice that there are many other buildings in the downtown Royers influenced and designed in that entry. It's mentioned in this Preservation Matters by PACA, a newsletter, a very effective article by Brian Adams. And there's the Reverend Tatum, his wife, who's passed away, members of his community and church, and let's see, yeah, Ali Watts Davis is a member of the church choir, and we all know she's led the Martin Luther King choral presentations every year at Krannert Center for the Performing Arts. So members of that church provide significant public service and through their both musical and their spiritual services to the community. There's the Boy Scout troop, Eagle Scouts, the church, and Safe House Council, among others. And thank you, Angela, for mentioning the fact that education and economics are important, because the church also did establish a credit union for people in its congregation.
And the baptismal pool is functional. The painting no longer is there, however.
Oh.
Thank you very much for your comments. Would any other members of the public like to offer comments in favor of the nomination? Maybe move it a little closer, or is the green light on?
Yeah.
Okay,
There we are.
there we go. All right, I'm sorry. My name is Susan Apple, and I'm here representing PACA. And I'd just like to say that we are happy to support this nomination and very glad that the HPC is accepting of it. And this seems to be a logical addition to the list of landmarks in the city. That's it.
Thank you, Susan. Any other public comments? No? Okay. We have one written public comment that, as Marcus noted, was included in the dossier And so we do draw attention to that. It came by email on Thursday, May 25th from Daryl Faust or Fosty? Fosty. We wanted to let you know that we're very supportive of Reverend Tatum's request to make Canaan Baptist Church a historic landmark. That church is a classic structure, and both the exterior and the interior are magnificent. We've lived across the street from the church for nearly 40 years and have always appreciated it. Put that into the record. So now we invite any member of the public who would like to speak in opposition to the nomination to come forward, but I don't anticipate that, I don't see anyone else, so I think that we're okay. And to the best of my knowledge, there was no written submission of that. Okay. So we do invite the applicant now to address any concerns that have been mentioned by anybody in either part, but there we are, okay? So that closes the public input portion of the meeting.
I could say one more
Sorry,
thing,
yeah.
perhaps? Well, it was an honor to work with Reverend Tatum on this application. We actually had a conversation about this 2 years ago, and it's taken a long time for it to come to fruition, so I appreciate it being here today. And also, I felt like it was really important to bring new nominations forward to the commission because, I don't know, it's been a couple of years since we've had a nomination, and I think it's one of the duties of the commissioners to try to encourage people to be willing to nominate their homes or their businesses, storefronts, or whatever to consideration. And part of the job that we have as commissioners is to assist you in bringing that. I know it's a lot of work and you probably don't know how to do it, but we're willing to help you with that and make that possible so that you can benefit it. And I will just say that one of the goals and the future goals of the nomination to have this done as a nomination locally is to look for national grants that are now available since 2016 for religious community buildings through the Fund for Sacred Places program, which is a offshoot of the National Trust for Historic Preservation, and I had picked out one other item about that. Yes, and that the National Trust for Historic Preservation and the Partners for Sacred Places, a collaboration which created the National Fund for Sacred Places. And this is because the Historic Trust doesn't really include religious buildings. There needed to be some kind of an organization that could offer that assistance, and that's why the Fund for Sacred Places was established. And it was an article that appeared in Preservation magazine, featuring one of the churches that received that grant, that really did inspire the applicant.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing that, for adding that to this discussion. So there is an invitation now to the commissioners if you have any additional questions for city staff. That's the next step. Hearing none. So now is the time for us to have a discussion and or to make a motion. So if
And at
there's
this point, I'm afraid I need to recuse myself from participation because as an applicant participant, I'm not allowed to actually take the vote.
So, but that does leave us with a quorum still. We need 4 people for a quorum, so we're okay on that front. Any discussion, any comments, questions? I would just say one great generality, which is I really appreciate what you've said about the congregation respecting the building. I also think this is a great example of how you can have a historic building and make phenomenal use of it, right? Because that's one of the things we try to share with people all the time, that these are living entities, and it's not about shutting down possibilities. So the wide range of uses to which this building's been put makes it a great example of something we could point to. You can have your cake and eat it too.
I'll just comment and say that the documented historical significance of your church home, I appreciated learning more about it. I have since, visited at least on the outside just to see in person, closer than I have in the past. And I hope that our community, takes notice after this vote and also goes to visit and just sees the beauty of this space and what you've done for the community. So I say thank you, and thank you to Reverend Tatum and to Dennis and others who helped to bring this to fruition.
So would anyone like to make a motion, meaning the statement like, given that this meets the criteria, et cetera, et cetera?
I will.
Okay.
You mean like a motion?
Yes,
Then,
making a motion.
I move that the Historic Preservation Commission finds that Canaan Missionary Baptist Church meets the criteria for designation as a local landmark, and that the HPC should approve the application to designate the property as a local landmark. Do I need to say like the conditions, or is that okay?
You could just say as read in the staff report.
Okay, as indicated in the staff report, it has significant value in terms of its ethnic, social, cultural, education, economic contributions to the city, as well as for its exhibit of having important historic styles and an important architect for the city of Urbana.
Phenomenal motion. You were moved.
I second the nomination.
Well, so any comments about the motion first? Sound good? Okay, all right. So, so now I will turn to Marcus to call a vote.
Okay. With a motion from Laura O'Donnell and a second from Andrew Weiss, Laura O'Donnell,
Yes?
Dennis Roberts, Oh, sorry.
Abstain.
sorry, Angela Urban,
Yes.
Andrew Weiss, and David Hayes.
Yes. So the outcome of the vote is that the motion's approved.
Yes, you had your minimum 3?
Sorry?
You met the minimum 3 for a landmarking requirement, as well as majority vote.
Great, thank you very much. And so the case now gets forwarded to the city council, is
Nope,
that right?
it stops
That's it,
here.
right, because
it was not
yes,
a contested nomination.
excellent. There we are, it's official. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, fellow commissioners.
New business, there's no new business. Is there any monitoring to report on existing historic properties? Thank you.
Only that, well, there is some monitoring mentioned in the staff report, but if members have done any monitoring or noticed anything, I would be very happy to hear that as well.
Dennis, any monitoring of historic properties on your own there? Is this for this portion of the?
No, I can't say that I brought anything to, I didn't focus on that this time.
And there's no study session for this meeting. Any announcements?
Yeah,
Yes.
okay. Well, I've got a quick announcement. I think it's really relevant to Historic Preservation Commission, is the future of Urbana in the Urbana Comprehensive Plan. And we're having a couple of events. The first one is going to be tomorrow, where we will have kind of an analog, a board game version of an engagement opportunity. You can also do this engagement activity online on imagineurbana.com. And you can provide input. It's an activity where you have $100 and a lot of amazing things you can spend it on that cost a lot more than $100 in total. But you have to prioritize, unfortunately, and you can be the decision maker in that situation and tell us what your priorities are. So just wanted to recommend that the activity tomorrow is going to be at 25 o'clock. It is at 6 o'clock, right before trivia. And it is being hosted by the Ward 2 councilperson, Chris Evans. There is also upcoming events in almost every ward in Urbana, and you're invited to any of them or all of them if you'd like to do the activity in person. But of course, you can always do it online and share it with your friends. Everybody is encouraged to tell us what your priorities are.
What was the location physically again?
25 o'clock
Oh, the
on
parade.
Griggs. Yeah, yep.
6 o'clock at 25 o'clock tomorrow.
6 o'clock at 25 o'clock.
Thank you for mentioning that.
Yeah.
It's really exciting to see that. Yeah. Angela.
I just wanted to mention as well something I think relevant to our group here and to those who may be listening. On June 17th at 12:30 p.m., there's going to be a walking tour of Buena Vista Court. And so we have a group of volunteers, volunteer students, I should mention, from the U of I, who are assisting with that. And there will be you can either join by meeting at the farmer's market. There will be a booth both this coming Saturday and on the 17th, where these volunteers will be located. And that walking tour will begin at 12 p.m., or you can meet at Buena Vista Court at 12:30 p.m.
Fantastic. That's something I know we talked about in March, so it's exciting to know that's happening. Great.
And if I can bump back up to the staff report, I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but I did want to highlight a couple things in that. We recently had a zoning ordinance text amendment for R7 university residential zoned properties. Those were usually things that were dorms or fraternities or sororities or other group housing. The zoning designation doesn't really allow a whole lot beyond group homes. So they faced, dereliction, deterioration, demolition. Staff and city thought it was a good idea to find additional uses for those. So they passed the R7 adaptive reuse zoning text amendment, I think last August or something like that. And we had our first project come up at 606 West Ohio, which is a Mike Kellner-owned property. They submitted an application. It went through review by Chair Alice Novak and myself as a designee for the zoning administrator. They're going to be converting it into an apartment building. The only exterior change they made was enclosing an outdoor porch, which is a reversible activity. So they were approved to convert this group home into an apartment building, and I'm hoping they will allow tours or a tour, because it's pretty amazing that so quickly after an amendment that we had somebody bite and use that. And then that's probably the main thing I wanted to announce.
Apologies, I skipped item J, formerly known as item I.
Oh, yeah.
Apologies for that.
That-
But was there anything else in there that you wanted to bring up?
One of the projects that we had been checking on, which was stairs and railings at the Bill's house. I was out there recently, and it looks like they simply repaired the railings rather than wanting to go ahead and replace them. So that does not require a certificate of appropriateness. So I took that off of the slate of projects.
Great to know about the zoning, for the Greek houses and all, because that was also a discussion from last year, a year and a half ago or something that was pretty we were very invested in that, so,
So
yeah.
spread that word, it's actually getting used.
Great.
And it's, it's a little complicated. There are more uses available if you're west of Lincoln rather than east of Lincoln, but it's more options than were there before. And if parking minimums are somewhat modified, so that makes it a little easier if you use the existing building.
Very much. Any other announcements? Going back to that? Then, according to this, I can just say the meeting is adjourned. I still feel this impulse to say we have to move that, but otherwise, okay, so the meeting is adjourned at 7:55 PM. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone online.
Power of the chair.